of Jonah. The word of the Lord came to Jonah a second time, saying, "Get up, go to Nineveh, that great city, and proclaim to it the message that I tell you." So Jonah set out and went to Nineveh according to the word of the Lord. Now Nineveh was an exceedingly large city, a 3 days' walk across. Jonah began to go into the city, going a day's walk. And he cried out, 40 days more, and Nineveh shall be overthrown." And the people of Nineveh believed God. They proclaimed a fast, and everyone, great and small, put on sackcloth. When God saw what they did, and how they turned from their evil ways, God changed his mind about the calamity that he had said he would bring upon them, and he did not do it. This is the word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. Now let us bow together in prayer. Now, Lord, may the words of my mouth and the meditations of our hearts be acceptable in your sight. O Lord, our strength and our Redeemer. Amen. The great story of Jonah is known perhaps as one of the best stories of the Old Testament, because most of us at one time or another learned it, sang about it, or danced to it in one form or another. It was certainly part of my curriculum in my early church school days when I was a child, but somehow I got the story of Jonah all mixed up with Pinocchio for some strange reason. I blame that on Mr. Disney. It certainly was part of the educational material when I began ministry back many, many years ago. Because it's a great story. It's a story that is self-contained and one that is often part of the syllabus of college courses if they teach a course on the literature of the Old Testament. And for most of us, it comes across as kind of a nice little myth for children with a story of a big fish. It really isn't called a whale, but we call it that because it's easier. It's sometimes called the story of the big fish or the story of the reluctant prophet. But somehow it loses its meaning if it remains a children's story, and we forget the powerful references that are made in the New Testament about Christ being in the tomb 3 days in a similar fashion as Jonah was in the belly of the whale. And since the message today is a story, and part of the greatness of the message is the fact that it is a story, this morning I'm going to tell you 2 stories. The first one you may have heard before, but it certainly has its bearing today when we talk about the story of Jonah. It seems that a certain man passed away and went to the heavenly kingdom, whereupon he was met at the pearly gates, of course, by St. Peter, who asked him, since the heavenly mansion is described in John's Gospel as a large mansion with lots of rooms, what room would you like to live in for the rest of eternity? Well, this particular man was a little bit confused. He didn't quite know what that meant. And so Peter said, well, tell you what, I'll take you on a little tour of heaven, and then you can decide what room you want to be in. And he said, fine, that should answer my question. So they began their way down the long hallway of heaven, and they came to a room with the door open, and from out of that door they heard all kinds of singing and praying and amening and clapping. Just a real lot of hoopla going on in that room. And St. Peter said, that's the Baptist room. There are a lot of good folks in there, but that's where they must come from. The man thanked St. Peter, and they moved on. They came again to another room, and through that door they could see a whole collection of families. And all the men were in dark pants, white shirts, and a long tie. And there were these doors set up in the room, and these men kept knocking on the doors. And St. Peter said, those are the Mormons. They knock on so many doors down on earth, they have a hard time giving it up in heaven. They went on to a third room. Now in this room, when the man looked in, there was an ice skating rink and a large conference table. There were people sitting around the table discussing and debating. St. Peter said, well, that's for the frozen chosen, but we call them the Presbyterians. They like to do everything decently and in order, so oftentimes they'll debate much longer than they need touching the tops of the rugs. And St. Peter said, "Those are the Muslims." And he looked at the man and said, "Bet you didn't think they'd be up here." So he went on to the third room. And as they got to the third room, there was a tremendous rock band playing, and everyone was singing and clapping, and there was a tremendous amount of noise coming out of the room. And St. Peter said, "Now we have to be quiet when we walk past this door." And the man said, "Why?" And St. Peter said, "Well, those are the conservative evangelical Christians, and they think they're the only ones up here." The story of Jonah is the story that confronts us in many ways about who exactly it is that God should love. Is it a story of Jonah? Is it a story about a whale? Is it a story about God? Or is it a story about you and about me? So let me change the story for just a moment. In the year 2014, the Word of God came to a young woman living in the Ukraine. His name was Bodana, which is the most common female name in Ukrainian. And God said to Bodana, "I want you to leave Kiev and travel over to Donetsk, where there are rebels fighting your people. Some of them are your people, and some of them probably are not your people. And I want you to tell them that if they don't amend their ways, I'm going to wipe them out." Well, there was some part of Bodana who thought, that's a good idea, because they're probably not going to amend their ways. And it would be really great, Lord, if you could just destroy all of our enemies. But there was this small nag in the back of her mind. It kept saying, my faith as a Ukrainian Orthodox Christian tells me that it is possible that God just might decide to forgive these people. And that was something she didn't like. So with the money that she had saved up, she left her apartment and made her way to the train station. But she thought, I'm going to be going to a country where my life isn't as secure as it is here. Although I would certainly like it if the Lord would destroy all those people, I really don't want to put my life in that kind of jeopardy. So I think I'll change my destination. So when she goes to the ticket counter, she buys a ticket for Switzerland. Says, gee, I think I'll go skiing. That sounds like a lot more fun than proclaiming the word of God to the people over the nest. So she gets on the train takes off, and as soon as it crosses the Austrian border, and snow begins to mount and roll high up in the mountains until a great avalanche begins to form. And that snowball races down the mountain and runs right into the side of the train as it knocks the train car over, and it spins until it comes to the edge of the valley and rests upon the other side of the valley. And Bodana believes she is going to die. And her faith springs forth in her saying, this is what is happening to me because I decided not to follow what God had told me to follow. So she begins to pray. And this is what she prays. I call out in my distress to you, O Lord. I cry from the depths of the darkness, for you have cast me into winter's rage. I have been expelled from you, but I will look again to your aid. Snow encompasses me to the point of death. The weight of moisture engulfs me, but I will sacrifice to you and praise you forever. And when she concludes her prayer, she sees a small beam of light coming through a hole above her outside the train car. And she realized that someone out there is trying to break through the ice to rescue her. So in gratitude for her rescue, she says to herself, I will now follow and do what the Lord has commanded. So she goes back to Kiev, makes a transfer, makes her way to the city of Donetsk, and gets off and begins her long walk. And through the different parts of life, through every residential street, every business area, every park, every playground, every government facility, she warns the people of Donetsk that the Lord is about to destroy them. And part of her is happy. And When the commander of the rebels hears the word, he too tells the soldiers to lay down their weapons and let peace grow. Well, this is disappointing to Bodana, because the largest part of her wanted that entire situation to be wiped from the face of the earth. So she prays once again, please, Lord, what is this that I have said while I was still in my country? It is as I had said before, in order to forestall your judgment, I fled to Switzerland, for I knew that you are gracious and compassionate, slow to anger and abundant in loving kindness, and one who relents concerning calamity. Therefore now, Lord, please take my life from me, for death is better than life itself. If you're going to treat these people, my enemies, like that, I might as well die. But God said to her, what reason have you got to be angry? What has happened to you that you would be filled with so much venom? So she flees from the city again, perhaps again trying to run away from God, takes rest from the heat under a tree outside the city. And she looks up at the tree and gives thanks for the branches and the leaves and how wonderful it is to find rest from the heat. But God looks down upon Bodana and causes a disease to rapidly kill that tree, and the leaves disappear, and the sun beats down on her again. And God says to her, you were grateful for the shade that the tree provided to you, and had compassion on it. You even gave thanks for it, though you did absolutely nothing to help it grow. Should I not have compassion on the people of Donetsk, the good as well as the bad? Are they not both my people? And who are you that you should tell me who I should love and who I should forgive? And the story ends with that question hanging out there in the air for people to say, who are we that we should tell God who God should love, who God should forgive? See, the story isn't about the whale. It's not really about the people of Nineveh that much. A little bit about Jonah. But it's so much more about you and about me, that somehow in our faith we should decide whom God